There are words that collapse entire rituals the moment they leave your mouth. Not prayers you've memorized, not verses repeated without meaning. These are declarations that sever spiritual contracts most people don't even know they're trapped in. A former practitioner who once wielded these rituals herself revealed something chilling. Certain phrases create an irreversible break in the unseen realm. Once spoken with genuine intent, the assignments against you cannot be reassembled. But here's what makes this dangerous. Most people say them wrong, or they say them without understanding the weight they carry. She sat across from me, hands folded, eyes carrying the kind of exhaustion that only comes from years of looking over your shoulder. You have to understand, she said quietly. We were taught to fear certain words, not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they dismantled everything we built in the unseen. Before her conversion, she operated in spaces most people only see in movies, rituals, bindings, assignments whispered over photographs, and personal items. And for years it worked, until she encountered people who spoke phrases that, in her words, circuited the entire operation. It wasn't the volume, she explained. It was the authority behind the words, like turning on a light in a room that was only powerful because it stayed dark. The first phrase is a boundary most witches never expect someone to enforce. When you declare aloud, I revoke every agreement I did not consciously make, something shifts. Unconscious consent is the foundation of most spiritual manipulation. Trauma, desperation. These open doors you didn't know you were walking through. This phrase slams them shut retroactively. She said practitioners would feel it immediately. A sudden disconnect, like a rope snapping mid-pull. Think of it like this. Imagine signing contracts in your sleep. You wake up obligated to terms you never read. This phrase is you, fully awake, nullifying the signature. The second phrase deals with inherited access. I break every generational curse spoken or unspoken over my bloodline. Bloodline work is fundamental in these circles. It's not about you alone. It's about the doors your ancestors left open. This phrase doesn't ask permission. It severs the line completely. She admitted this one frustrated her former colleagues the most because it undid years of embedded work in a single sentence. The third phrase addresses the attack in progress. I cover myself and my household under the blood of Jesus Christ. Simple, direct, and according to her, insurmountable. We had no counter for it, she said. That covering created a barrier we couldn't penetrate, redirect, or outlast. The fourth is a reclaiming of stolen ground. I take back every piece of my peace, health, and clarity that was stolen from me. Witchcraft often operates through extraction, slowly pulling away your clarity, your rest, your sense of safety. This phrase demands full restoration. It's not a request, it's a legal claim in the spiritual realm. The fifth phrase is the one she said made her walk away entirely. I declare that no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me in judgment, I condemn. She heard someone say this during a season when multiple rituals were layered against them. Everything collapsed, she whispered, not slowly, immediately, like pulling a thread and watching a tapestry unravel. She looked at me with something between relief and warning. People don't realize how much power their words carry. These aren't spells, they're declarations of truth that the enemy has no defense against. But you have to mean them. You have to believe you have the right to say them, because the moment you do, everything changes. Most people don't realize they've been spiritually bound through moments of weakness, fear, or trauma. When you're at your lowest, grieving, desperate, angry, you become vulnerable to agreements made in the unseen realm. You didn't sign anything visible, but your emotional state opened the door. Maybe you said, "I'd do anything," in a moment of desperation. Maybe ancestral practices in your family created openings you inherited. These become legal grounds in the spiritual world for ongoing attacks, confusion, and blockages. When you declare, "I revoke every agreement I did not consciously make," you're exercising authority you always had but never knew to use. This phrase operates like a spiritual audit. It goes through every hidden contract and nullifies it. Practitioners rely heavily on these unconscious agreements because most people never think to cancel them. They assume if they didn't remember making a deal, they're stuck with it. But biblical authority doesn't work that way. You have the right to revoke what was taken from you through deception, manipulation, or inherited bondage. The moment you speak this with genuine conviction, those invisible chains snap. Witches feel it as a sudden loss of access, like trying to open a door that was always unlocked, only to find it's now sealed shut. Generational curses are among the most insidious forms of spiritual warfare because they don't start with you. They've been traveling through your family line for decades, sometimes centuries. These aren't just bad habits or repeated mistakes. They're spiritual assignments passed down like inherited debt. Patterns of poverty, addiction, broken marriages, sudden deaths, mental illness. When these things repeat across generations with eerie consistency, you're often looking at a curse that's been riding your bloodline. Practitioners target families, not just individuals, because the work is more efficient. One ritual can affect multiple generations. The enemy doesn't have to reapply the curse with each new birth. It automatically transfers unless someone breaks it. Most people try to fight these patterns through willpower alone, wondering why they keep falling into the same traps their parents and grandparents did. They're fighting symptoms, not the root. When you declare, "I break every generational curse spoken or unspoken over my bloodline," you're stepping into your authority as a bloodline breaker. You're not asking permission. You're severing the legal right that curse had to continue. The phrase works because it addresses both spoken curses So words deliberately released over your family and unspoken ones, rituals, agreements, or practices that created spiritual doors. This declaration stops the transfer immediately. It's why practitioners get frustrated. Years of embedded generational work gets undone in seconds. There's a reason the blood of Jesus is mentioned specifically. It's not symbolic language or religious tradition. In the unseen realm, it represents an actual barrier that dark forces cannot cross, manipulate, or outlast. Former practitioners consistently describe it the same way: an impenetrable shield that stops every form of spiritual attack cold. Curses bounce off it. Rituals can't lock onto you. Assignments get redirected back to the sender. When you declare, I cover myself and my household under the blood of Jesus Christ, you're activating protection that exists outside human effort. This isn't about your strength, your faith level, or how spiritual you feel that day. It's about stepping under a covering that was purchased and established long before you were born. The enemy has no legal counter to it. He can't argue with it, negotiate around it, or find a backdoor through it. What makes this phrase especially powerful is the word household. You're not just covering yourself, you're extending that protection over your family, your home, even your finances and health. Practitioners often work through what they call soft targets: children, spouses, or anyone close to you who might be less protected. This declaration closes those entry points entirely. According to the former witch, this was the phrase that frustrated her and her colleagues most, because once someone spoke it with true understanding, their access was completely cut off. No weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me in judgment I condemn. This isn't just a verse people quote for encouragement. It's a legal decree in the spiritual realm. When she heard someone speak this during a concentrated attack, she watched every carefully constructed ritual collapse in real time, not gradually, instantly. Here's what makes this phrase so devastating to the kingdom of darkness. It doesn't just defend, it condemns. It's not passive protection, it's active judgment against every spoken curse, every whispered ritual, every assignment released into the atmosphere against you. The word condemn means you're rendering those attacks powerless and turning the consequences back on those who sent them. This is biblical justice operating in real time. She described it like watching a building implode. Multiple practitioners had layered their work: binding rituals, confusion spells, health attacks, all targeted at one person. When that person declared this phrase with absolute confidence, everything unraveled simultaneously. The attacks didn't just stop, they reversed. Practitioners started experiencing the very things they'd sent. That's when she realized she was fighting against something far more powerful than anything she'd been trained in. This declaration changed her life because it proved she'd been operating under a false authority the entire time. She thought she had power until she met the one who actually holds it.